Good morning and welcome to the Arts Education Partnership 2018 annual convening. And first and foremost, happy Arts and Education Week to everyone. So we're very excited to have you here in Indianapolis and in the great state of Indiana. As many of you know, I originally hail from the great state of Indiana. And as the partnership bounces around every other year to different cities, we believe that this state is a great place to host the meeting for many reasons, but among them is the amazing things they're doing with respect to arts and education, and we're excited to highlight some of those for you throughout the next 2 days. So now time has flown since we were all together in Washington, D.C. last year, and AEP is now in its third year under the leadership of Education Commission of the States. And it is my third annual convening, and it is very affirming to look out and see so many more familiar faces. That being said, if I don't know you, I hope you'll take the time the next few days to introduce yourself to me or one of the AEP or Education Commission of the States team. So with that, I'm going to point a few of those folks out for you. Kate Wolfe is in the back of the room. She's the Assistant Director of the Arts Education Partnership. Kate is based in D.C. Cassandra Quillen is right up here in front. She does our great communications work at the Arts Education Partnership. Melissa Aguiar and Sarah Olin are at the registration desk. Sarah's actually here with us and we're checking things out. And they're getting people squared away and can answer any questions you have throughout the next 2 days. We're getting great support from Education Commission of the States and Tom Kiley, who has also been instrumental in some of the work we do with Arts Ed Search. Klaus von Zastro, if he is, there he is, hi Klaus. Anyway, Klaus is here and he's leading an important new initiative funded by the National Endowment for the Arts at Education Commission of the States regarding the State Data Infrastructure Project. And finally, I always am super grateful when my boss, Jeremy Anderson, the president of Education Commission of the States, continues to express his interest in the Arts Education Partnership. And you'll be hearing from Jeremy at the top of the day tomorrow. So while I have the platform here, I thought I'd just spend a few minutes reflecting on the last year and talking to you about what we see around the corner for Arts Education Partnership. Since last year, we have a new acting chairman at the National Endowment for the Arts in Marianne Carter. We have been lucky enough to get to know Bonnie Carter, who, if she is not here, she is on her way, as the new Arts and Education Program Supervisor at the U.S. Department of Ed. We're enjoying getting to know Bonnie as she works alongside the ever-committed Ayanna Hudson and Nancy Doherty at the National Endowment for the Arts. Together, our terrific partnership with these ladies and the National Endowment for the Arts and the U.S. Department of Ed are what make AEP work as we serve the field of arts and education. Now, there have also been a slew of policy challenges in the last year. And so to name a few, we've seen a rollback of DACA. We've watched folks endure hurricanes such as Harvey, Irma, and Maria. And I hope we will all be thinking about our friends along the Carolina coast who are now enduring the brunt of Florence on its way. We've witnessed tragic situations such as the one at Stoneman Douglas High School. West Virginia was center stage with a teacher strike. We've observed student activism, women's activism. Opioid abuse was declared a national health emergency. And in state politics, we installed 3 new governors and saw fiscal year 2019 state budgets increase its spending by 3.2%. Also, in the last year, we have rallied for arts and education. And AEP's role in that has been to remain nonpartisan, but supply you with the best information possible for you all to do your jobs at your respective organizations. And isn't it incredible that finally we can say that all 50 states have art standards? So in addition to those art standards, I'd like to flag for you that we continue to do an annual update to Art Scan at a Glance, and are grateful to many of you in the room who work for state agencies or in our state arts agencies, because Art Scan at a Glance continues to be a very popular artifact on our website. So in addition to that, Every Student Succeeds Act is moving forward, and we're watching states actualize their state plans with respect to the arts. Those of you who are part of the Every Student Succeeds Act working group or continue to tap our Mapping Opportunities for the Arts document should continue to do so. If you feel like you've seen it before, I encourage you to go back to our website, because we are now in the place where, as states are showing how they're incorporating the arts and taking action, we're putting state examples forward. So if you feel like you've seen it before, take a second look. Let me set the stage for you of what you're going to see the next 2 days and how that is reflected in the program. Many of you know that the Arts Education Partnership is guided by its 2020 action agenda. It's our blueprint for how we do our work and how we engage with you as our partners. The priorities of raising student achievement and success, supporting effective educators and school leaders, transforming teaching and learning environments, and building leadership capacity and knowledge are still true today, and things that we seek to do in 2020 and beyond. Now, as I mentioned beyond 2020, I want to say that we continue to look across the landscape of arts and education and identify organizations that are doing meaningful work to bring them into the partnership. That being said, I'd like to welcome many of the new organizations that have joined Arts Education Partnership. You can see them on the slide. Some folks are here today. We're grateful to have you, and know that we continue to identify organizations that share our mission around arts being part of a child's well-rounded education. Now, speaking of priorities in action, I draw your attention to the fact that the 2020 is right around the corner, and action is what we seek. We've reached out to many of you around telling your stories through blogs, exemplars, and real stories that we can put on our website. And we hope you will join us in bringing your stories to life for a wider policy audience. I'm going to pause there for a second and reiterate that. In my estimation, what Education Commission of the States can bring to you and your respective organizations is its wide net. Its ability to tell your stories to a broader audience. So if you're interested, we encourage you to participate with us in the blog initiative and success stories, so we may share your good work with policymakers. Know that we will work alongside you and make it as painless as possible. Now, last year, I introduced Education Commission of the States and how it organized its work. Education Commission of the States takes pride in its ability to generate research, reports, provide counsel, and have great convenings. I'm going to give you a couple examples of how the Arts Education Partnership is able to leverage Education Commission of the States. Every July, a National Forum for Education Policy is held, and AEP gets a platform within its programming. This year, we featured the great work happening in Illinois. There's a partnership that exists between the State Department of Ed, the State Board, and Arts Alliance Illinois, where they have been deeply involved in the Illinois State Plan and crafting its accountability system around the fifth indicator. Now, that was a tremendous opportunity for other states to come, and other policymakers who are curious about the role arts play in a child's life, to ask probing questions of the successes, the pitfalls, and the challenges that lie ahead for Illinois, and how might they bring those lessons back to their own states as they identify the role of arts in education. Now, we also follow suit with ECS with respect to research, and I'm always proud to say that the Arts Education Partnership is the home of the Arts EdSearch database. Many of you will notice that it's had a bit of a facelift since it came over from the Council of Chief State School Officers. But we're always grateful to our review panel who engages with us willingly to ensure that we have the best research that exists with respect to arts and education. Using that great research, we have been really fortunate to be able to update our two most popular deliverables. And in fact, they're refreshes of existing ones. First, we redid Music Matters, and that work was graciously supported by both the NAM Foundation and the CMA Foundation. And not only did they support us in that work, but they helped us identify a terrific review panel of our music partners so that the music organizations that are a part of AEP could wrap their arms around it, review it, and endorse it as a great document that what I am most proud of is grounded in the research that exists in Arts EdSearch's database. I believe that you got copies at registration, but I know there's certainly copies at the piano, I think, meaningfully so, if you'd like some more. So one of the signs of an evolved person is understanding their strengths and weaknesses. And one thing I can tell you absolutely about myself is I am not cool. The greatest thing about this job is I get to hang out with all of you, and you're very cool. And people like Mary Lurson have these amazing conferences, and she invites me and provides me a platform to share Music Matters through her conferences, as well as Tiffany Kearns at CMA Foundation, who gave us a platform at South by Southwest. That's just to name a few. C-Day, PDI institutes, AFTA's been generous to us. And so that's a long way to go to say that we will endeavor to be worthy. My team is always worthy, but I promise I will try to be as hip as all of you are if you invite us to your conferences. Second, in terms of a deliverable refresh, we redid what school leaders can do to increase arts integration. Many of you remember last year, Dr. Earl Franks introduced himself to you as the new president of the organization and a former band teacher and a great champion for arts and education. The National Association of Elementary School Principals partnered with us on this refresh, and I was very grateful to Earl for inviting me to the National NAESP meeting, where I must tell you, it was incredibly inspiring and overwhelming to be among so many leaders who capture the imagination of primary school children so early in their education life cycle. And I'm sure all of you can sit there in your chairs today and remember how critical your own elementary school years were to you in the roles you play today and the passions you have for arts and education. So both of these releases illustrate collaborations, and at AEP we're all about collaboration. So I encourage you to think about your own discipline, your own organizations, and your own ideas, and approach us with things that you would like us to collaborate on. We're excited about the prospect. We believe it's our role, and we will endeavor to make it as easy on you as possible. Couple other reports I want to make sure I mention is Hewlett Foundation has graciously given us support to advance our 2020 action agenda through policy briefs. Earlier this year, we worked alongside the Higher Education Working Group to come in along their text entitled Preparing Educators for Arts Integration, and we created a policy brief to message this work to policymakers called Preparing Educators and School Leaders for Effective Arts Integration. We worked with Martha McKenna, who should be in the room today, and I should put a plug in for Martha that the Higher Ed Working Group is meeting tomorrow morning before breakfast, and so see her if you have any questions. Secondly, yesterday in your inbox you might have gotten the Creative Youth Development Policy Brief that was just released yesterday, and we're very grateful to the National Guild as well as the Creative Youth Development Coalition so that we might spread the important work of CYD to a wider policy audience. So I've talked about the ESSA Working Group, I've talked about the Higher Ed Working Group. I just want to wet your whistle today and flag for you that we have started a new working group called the Equity Working Group. And that endeavor just launched a few weeks ago, and we have gotten a wild response of interest in it as we all tackle this issue head on. We're grateful to the National Assembly of State Arts Agencies and Susan Auchen in particular, who's chairing that group. Our initial plans are in the very early stages, but we've identified 20 organizations that we know are addressing equity and equity concerns in their workplace. We're collecting data, and we are going to be generating a brief on that in the spring that we hope will inform your own work in arts and education. So that's a look back of how we have been busy, and now we are all here today to convene and learn from one another. So I want to highlight some things that you're going to see in the program. As I mentioned, first and foremost, we're excited to be back in the state of Indiana, and you will see that reflected throughout the program. I'll also reiterate that we are relentless in our focus on diversity, cultural inclusion, equity, and social justice, and that will be reflected in the keynote speech by Lois Vossen tomorrow. We have a slew of concurrent sessions that we have offered, and we hope that you will take advantage of things such as accountability systems, professional development for teachers, and the importance of research, data, and measurement. I also hope that you have either had the opportunity or will see that it's offered a few times throughout the program to engage in the virtual reality experience that we're offering. To give you a sense of tomorrow, we will start the day with a long conversation. And I will just wet your whistle and say the long conversation is anything but a snooze fest. When you hear the long conversation, it seems a little off-putting, but we are excited to use that information as a good lens of different vantage points, different speakers, and different ideas to inform what we do beyond 2020. So you'll go to some more concurrent sessions tomorrow afternoon after the long conversation, and you will end the conference with what you have already identified as the choice of the world-famous Indianapolis Children's Museum, or stick around here to see the screening of Won't You Be My Neighbor. That brings us to a full 2 days together. Now, I don't want you to forget that we have a reception tonight just a block down the street at the Rhythm Discovery Center, and it is at the Rhythm Discovery Center down a set of escalators. So when you leave this building, you'll just walk 1 block, and there'll be plenty of people that can direct you. But before we get the day underway, I have one last thing I feel I should say, and that is that the Arts Education Partnership is just that. It's a partnership, and we are only as strong as the partners that join us. So we at Team AEP are in service to the partnership. We're energized by sharing your good work and connecting you to others who share your hopes and dreams for arts and education and its impact on the child's life. So it's through your work and your determination and our work alongside you that we believe we are at our best. So we thank you for bringing us along for the ride, and we thank you for being good partners to AEP and Education Commission of the States. So let's get underway. As I mentioned, one of the themes throughout the program the next couple days is talking about the great and interesting work that's happening here in Indiana. One of the reasons that arts and education is thriving in this community is through great leadership, and you're going to hear about some of that this afternoon. Some of that great leadership comes from our terrific next speaker. He's an architect by training. Wolfe Osili is the president of the Indianapolis City County Council, and he represents District 11. Mr. Osili has worked extensively with community groups, civic organizations, and other public sector officials. He's engaged with the business community and is a champion for urban and economic development. He's invested in the empowerment of distressed and economically challenged communities. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Wolfe Osili.